Hey guys, it's Bailey and welcome back to the channel for what is going to be a what's new at the drugstore haul. A lot of you guys, most of you probably already know, there are a ton of new items hitting drugstore shelves, like a lot. Pretty much every brand is coming out with new stuff, and so it's a little overwhelming. I'm not gonna lie, this is gonna have to be split up because I've been like slowly accruing things as I find them. I'm gonna have to split this up into like 2, maybe even 3 parts, because if you are new to the channel, you might not know, but when I do a haul, I not only like to show you the things that I got, but I've actually been using these guys for a while, and so I have some pretty solid thoughts on them. I won't do a demo in this video. I will show you swatches and comparisons, but I'm gonna do a separate tutorial of the look that I'm wearing, which includes pretty much everything I'm going to talk about today. So that is why these videos are a little bit longer than the average haul, but I will put timestamps down in the description below because I know a lot of you guys like to hop around. You might not be interested in all the products I'm about to talk about, so take a peek down there if that is in fact the case. Otherwise, let's get this show on the road. We have got to get moving because there is a lot of ground to cover. So first, let's start with the eyes. I feel like that's where I have the most ground to cover because I'm not only going to give you a review of these guys, but I'm also going to do a mini duper dud in here. I'm sure a lot of you will be able to guess what I'm going to talk about. They are the new palettes from Covergirl. I have both the Goldens. They are the Covergirl truNaked Goldens palette and the Covergirl truNaked Roses palette. There is also a third one that is supposed to be a, similar, not dupe, but very similar palette to the Naked 2 that I just decided to skip out on. I was like, 2 is enough. Plus, I already had the Makeup Revolution palette that pretty much duplicates Naked 2. If you haven't seen that video, I will link it in my Duper Dud playlist below. But I had enough cool, neutral taupey shades, decided to give these a whirl to see if they really were. The disclaimer on here says shades like a leading $50 eyeshadow palette. I wonder which one. So for starters, let's just go over what's inside each of these palettes. You get 8 shades and a pretty nice spectrum in each. Here you have the Goldens, or the palette that is most like the Naked one. You can see visually very, very similar, and the Roses, once again, very similar to the Naked 2 with lots of pink, less like, not really rose gold because I'd say they are cooler, but plums, pinks, purples, things of that nature. There are 8 shades, like I said, in both, so obviously they're not going to be exact dupes, but I did find shades that are very, very close in each, so I will pop those up on the screen. Not all of these have dupes in the Naked palettes, but they can get you pretty darn close. And before I talk too much more about that, I will get to that later, but first I just want to cover like the quality of these shadows. I'm really impressed. These have to easily be my favorite shadows from Covergirl. I wasn't a huge fan of Covergirl shadows because they've been hit or miss. Even the best of the best is not like, what's Maybelline? Those are some of like the most buttery drugstore shadows in the, is it 4? No, it must be 5, like they are the arrow or chevron shaped. Those are kind of like some of my favorite drugstore eyeshadows. These are up there in quality, smooth. I wouldn't say so much creamy, they're just very, very soft powders, and as a result, you might experience quite a bit of fallout. That was probably the major difference between the Covergirl formula and the Urban Decay formula, is I would say, despite being very pigmented, the Covergirl are soft, which leads to a bit more powderiness, whereas the Urban Decay are creamy, and so you can build up the pigmentation of the Urban Decay more without experiencing as much fallout. But that being said, these are pretty stinking amazing shadows. Now let's talk about whether it's actually a dupe or a dud, starting with the Goldens. And obviously I said these aren't dupes, there just aren't enough shadows in the palettes to be a complete dupe, but I will say that one is definitely closer than the other. Let's start with the Goldens, and let me whip out my Naked 1 palette just so you can see the 2 side by side. So here you can see the Naked 1 has quite a larger spectrum. It does include kind of even cooler with the gunmetal. You have your dark but shimmery black creep, and then you even have some plums with toasted and hustle, like those purple undertones. This sits pretty squarely under this solid neutral over here. So right off the bat, you are going to be lacking some of those deeper, darker, non-brown toned neutrals from the Naked 1 palette. However, if you really are just eyeing this super core neutral side, this is a great way to go. My one complaint about the Covergirl though is if you're looking to kind of replace this side of the Naked 1 palette, is that there are some shadows in here that as I was creating looks, I just felt like all of them were coming out the same, because these deeper shadows over here in the Covergirl palette are just very, very similar when applied. Once they kind of sheer out, even if you do try and build up the pigmentation, they just look very similar when worn on the eye, despite the fact that you can see the difference swatched. We all know that there can and most often are a big difference in the way a product swatches versus how it wears once it's kind of distributed and blended out across the eye. So that's my one gripe here. Certainly wouldn't say it is a dupe, but you can get very, very similar looks, especially if you are really just looking to use the lighter, more brown tone end of the Naked One palette. Now, moving on to the Naked 3 / what is this, Roses palette from Covergirl. So a lot of you will already know this if you watched my comparison between the Naked 3 and the Maybelline Blushed Nudes palette, which I did maybe almost a year ago at this point. But basically I said that while I absolutely love the Naked 3 palette for the looks it can create, it's very, very flattering, but it stays in the neutral zone while giving you some beautiful pinks and plums to play with in your color palette. I didn't think it was worth the money because similar to the Golden from Covergirl, the Golden palette, I feel like so many of my looks turn out the same because there just isn't enough contrast in this palette. I feel like you could condense it down to, you know, 6 to 8 shades and just it would be equally as versatile. It'd be identical, like pretty much the same palette. And so to me, it just was, despite how beautiful the looks are, just wasn't, this is my least favorite of all the Naked palettes. So now we have this guy from Covergirl, which is way cheaper. This has more dupes per shade, I would say, than the other Covergirl palette to the Naked One palette. And it pretty much solves the problem that I had initially with the Urban Decay 3, and that is that it lacks the contrast. This is kind of exactly how I would envision a condensed version of Naked 3 where you can get all of the same looks, but with almost half the palette. Now you're still going to have the same formula difference. Like I said, the Urban Decay just has a little bit of a creamier texture, and so I find I get less fallout with these shadows, but for all practical purposes, I should have done wearing Naked 3 on one and the Covergirl on the other, but just for consistency of the tutorial that I filmed, I didn't. But oh my gosh, I bet you could. Maybe I will do a separate video. I don't know. Not sure, but basically that's my recommendation to you is if you don't have Naked 3, I would absolutely go for the Covergirl, especially over the Maybelline, what is it? Pinky Blush Nudes, that one. I prefer the Covergirl way over that one because these are the texture, the consistency, the quality of the Covergirl are more spot on, and there were kind of some hits, some misses with the Maybellines, but this whole palette is just right on. Woo! I think that was the longest part of this video, so sit tight guys, we are gonna breeze through the rest of these products, I promise. 2 more eye products. One is still another kind of eyeshadow pencil. This one is from Rimmel, and it's a dual-ended eyeshadow stick. These are the Magnif'eyes Intense Stay True Color Long Lasting Wear eyeshadow pencil. Oh, you have one eyeshadow and one kohl kajal, and I have the shade Queens of the Bronzed Age. So on one end you have a super tapered, this is the kajal, and it's a beautiful champagne, like very, very glittery champagne color. Great for getting in the inner corner, highlighting there. I actually used it as my all over eyeshadow base today. And then on the other end you have this beautiful, super warm, almost burgundy bronze shade that I have applied. In fact, I'll show a demo here of me just applying this to the eyes. These are so multifaceted, and I'm super happy to say I wore these without a primer and they went unfaded, uncreased all day. I absolutely love this formula, and the price cannot be beat. I did really like the Scandalized from the line, and I forget, I don't think they went out. Maybe they replaced the Scandalized line with Magnif'eyes, I guess. I do think this is a slightly better formula as far as longevity goes, but they are still very creamy, very easy to blend out. You can see in the demo here that I am blending it out with just a fluffy crease brush. It still stays very smooth, and you're able to play with it for a while before it dries down, but once it does, it is not going anywhere throughout the day. So really impressed with this, and might have to get more because these are such a good deal. You get 2 shades, 1 eye pencil, and they're so easy. They're very much like one and done shadows. Onto mascara. This is one of a few actually that I am testing now because Revlon has a few that they've launched. Wet n Wild has a few that they've launched, which I'm about to talk about. But long story short, this is the only one that I'm prepared to talk about, but just know that there are a lot more coming down the pipeline, which is in part why I have to spread this out between like 2, maybe 3 videos. So basically, the first one I want to talk about is the Wet n Wild Max Volume Mascara Plus. This is actually one that I got from Octoly, which I've mentioned quite a bit here on the channel. Basically, it's a sample program where you can ask for certain certain products that you may want to try, and if the brand accepts you, they send it to you. So that is where I got this. This guy has a rubberized wand, pretty tapered tip. It has the longer bristles here at the end, and then it gets tapered to very short bristles. A little bit more product accumulates here, so I find it's a surprisingly good way to get product on your lashes with the tip, and then use these longer bristles at the end to help kind of separate, run the product through the lashes, and help define everything. I think this, despite saying it's a volumizing mascara, I would say it did more lengthening for my lashes and definitely curling. The tapered tip of the wand was really great at getting not only in my inner corner, but also separating those lashes in my outer corner. So yeah, even though it says it's a volumizing mascara, it's great, but I think it's better at adding length and curling and defining your lashes than it does at adding volume. I don't know, let me know what you think about the before and after. And then as far as the formula goes, I would say, I mean, it's pretty smack dab in between like a super wet and a kind of drier formula. I think it's very easy to work with, and it lasts all day. No flaking, smudging, budging, running down your face. It's really nice, really good. I mean, like I said, Wet n Wild is easily one of the most affordable brands in the drugstore. So when they come out with an amazing mascara formula, you know, what's not to love? Now onto the face, I have, let's talk foundation first. This is a very hot foundation to come out from L'Oreal. It's the True Match Lumi Cushion Buildable Luminous Foundation, and mine is in the shade N35. I am neutral, and I love that L'Oreal has neutral shades because most of the time brands have like pink or yellow, and I really am neither. So I do love that I can find a neutral. This is a pretty good shade match for me. I'm wearing it right now. Might need a hair lighter. You can see it doesn't completely match my neck, but it did when I was tanning, and I haven't tanned for probably a week and a half. So, but this guy, as I'm sure a lot of you know, because I am kind of behind the power curve with this one, you open it up, it's this nice compact, and then you have a sponge applicator here that sits on top of a plastic closure. You open it up, and there you find a sponge inside, and so you can use this. And this, I say sponge, but it's kind of has almost like a rubber sponge combo texture. Like it's, I don't know, there's something about it that isn't quite like, not 100% sponge. It feels more like a beauty blender. That's what it is. And when you feel a beauty blender, it doesn't feel like a cheap drugstore sponge. There's like magic in it. It's kind of what this feels like. So you just pounce this guy in the cushion, and then I like to not, I actually prefer to apply it with this as opposed to a brush, and I don't like to kind of buff it around the face. I really like to tap. I find that's the most effective way to get a really natural looking wear with this foundation, and I am impressed. I was a little nervous that because it says Lumi that it would be a little too dewy for my combination skin, but really happy to report that it does dry. It takes a little bit longer to dry down than the average foundation. It still does leave me with like a very healthy, glowy sheen, but that sheen does not develop into something super out of control by the end of the day. Because sometimes with like glowy foundations, it's makeup meltdown at the end of the day when it comes to my combination skin. And so the trick to finding if I really am going for a luminizing or an illuminating foundation is to find the one that's going to set dewy and illuminating and not just progress into this oil slick ball at the end of the day. So really happy to say it didn't do that. It stayed really nicely intact around my face. I did not set it with powder except in my under eye area, which is just a place that I find no matter what foundation or specifically concealer I'm wearing under there, have got to set it with a powder. But besides that, my T-zone, didn't notice any wear like I typically would with kind of a dewy finish foundation. The one thing I do worry about this though is knowing when you need to get a new one. It's not like a bottle where you can kind of see your progress going down, or like you have one last pump and then you're done. And then once your sponge is dirty, it's hard to see how much product is coming off. So that's the one thing that I'm kind of like, I feel like I'm running out of product really fast, because I mean, how saturated could this guy be? Only time will tell. I've been using this for about 3 weeks now at this point. So I have a really solid idea of how I feel about it, but I just don't know when it's gonna run out, and that makes me feel a little uneasy. Let me know if you're in the same boat. But besides that, I really like it. Just the packaging is a little, I'm not sure how I feel about it yet. Last for the face is the Maybelline Master Contour Face Contouring Kit. I have the L'Oreal one. I just got it very recently though, so I haven't had a chance to try it. I've been in love with this guy. So basically you get contour, blush, and highlight all in one palette. This is the light version though. Anywho, inside you get the contour. It's a very nice, cool contour color. You get a blush, which is a kind of pinky or rosy blush, and then the highlighter. This might be one of my favorite highlighters ever, drugstore or not. It's just, the texture is kind of off-putting when you actually swatch it, but when you get it on your brush and you apply it, it's just, it has this kind of pink iridescence, so it complements the blush. It's beautiful and it's very strong. I mean, it's very buildable, so you don't have to worry about overdoing it if you don't want to, but at the same time, you can do like a pretty statement highlight and it looks so, so pretty. Very finely milled, not like disco ball-y. There aren't fine, or there aren't larger chunks of glitter or anything like that. It is more of an iridescence than a sparkle or shine sort of thing. But I was just very impressed with it. And the other thing, something that I have had happen with drugstore highlighters, is that as you're building them up, you start seeing less of an illumination or an iridescence, but a white cast, because the actual color of the powder builds up faster than the highlight aspect of the powder. So definitely doesn't happen with this guy. I noticed the highlight is just so, so beautiful, very buildable, and overall the same with this entire palette. The contour is very buildable, so I think it's gonna be, you know, it is somewhat soft out of the palette, but so it's gonna suit fair skin tones, but it's also buildable on me even when I've been tanning a little bit, and same with the blush. The one kind of question mark for me in this palette was this brush. Like, what did they think this was going to accomplish? Barbie's cheekbones? Like, what is this? Was this just for contour? Because what is, I don't, that's, yeah, you don't need it, but this is an amazing palette. And last are the lips. I have two different lip lines to talk about here today. The first, let's talk about the ones that I'm wearing. They are from Maybelline, I think. Yes, the Maybelline Vivid Matte Liquid Lipstick. Nope, just Vivid Matte Liquids. Basically a liquid lipstick, which clearly I had to get because I am in search or looking to do kind of an overview, top favorites, maybe a little misses in there of all the liquid lipsticks out there right now, because everyone and their brother is coming out with one. So picked up two shades here. One is actually the one that I'm wearing. Let's go with that one first. Is number 5 in Nude Thrill. Love this for a nude. Nudes can be a little dodgy for me. They're either, you know, they're too like pale or ashy, and so they make me look dead, or they're too like mauve-y, they just don't suit my skin tone. This was a surprisingly flattering nude, and one of the only ones they have as far as like lighter nudes go in the line. So I was kind of convinced it wasn't gonna work for me, because anytime that happens, it's like they just try and make it work for as many people possible and ends up working for no one. Really happy to report that it's beautiful. And then I got a beautiful raspberry shade. This is the shade 10, which is Berry Boost. Both of these apply really nicely to the lips. However, I would have thought by the name Vivid Matte Liquid that it was going to be more of like an Anastasia Beverly Hills liquid lipstick, where it's a true liquid. This definitely has more of a mousse consistency, like the NYX matte lip cream sort of situation. And then they don't completely dry down like you might think a lipstick would. I've been wearing this for a while. They definitely stain the lips. I'd say that's what they do more than anything else, is they stain the lips, but then you still have this kind of floating layer that never dries down and transfers on glasses. You're gonna notice it coming off when you eat and things like that. But when you have a darker shade, it's kind of harder to notice when you have a nude tone. But when you have a deeper berry shade like this, you really start to notice how much of that upper layer comes off as you do things like eat and drink, and then how much of it is actually just staining your lips, and that's how the pigment lives on throughout the day. Unlike the liquid lipsticks that have been coming out lately, where they just dry down into one solid piece that kind of slowly, you know, whether it flakes off or wears off, however it comes off throughout the day, it's more of a set and dry, no transfer, anything like that. So I was kind of not disappointed, I guess, because I know that some people will prefer this sort of formula. I really don't feel one way or the other about it. The one thing I do feel strongly about with these is the scent. They have the characteristic Maybelline, like, ooh, that's on my nose. I can't pinpoint it. It's like a mix of floral and fruity, and my main gripe with it is that I can taste it. It's like, smells mysterious and good, I guess, but then once it's on your lips, you can actually taste it with like a hint of chemicalness about it. So I can get over it because it's very short-lived, but at the same time, that's easily the biggest turnoff about this formula for me, is that it just is a weird sensation, scent thing. But beyond that, they're good. I just wouldn't put them in the traditional liquid lipstick category. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to mention is Tati did an entire swatch, like a review swatch video of every shade in this line, which I highly recommend you go watch, because for as much as I love both of these shades, she personally experienced some of the other shades did not wear as consistently as these guys did. Like when you apply them, they just apply a little blotchy. You could see like the spots of your natural lip color underneath, and so So I did not experience that at all with either of these shades. They applied evenly, very smoothly, very comfortable on the lips, but she had other experiences with different shades. So I will link that down below in case you're interested in shades other than these, but I would recommend these two shades. All right guys, we are nearing the finish line. Last but certainly not least are some new lip glosses from Rimmel. These are called the Oh My Gloss, up to 6 hours worth of wear with argan oil, and I have 3 shades from the line. This one is Ooh La La, which is a sheer jelly red, obviously. And then I have a beautiful peachy pink. It is in the shade Nonstop Glamour. And I mean, pretty much it's more of a true peach with a gold shimmer in it. And then there is this My Eternity, which is more of a sheer kind of purpley mauve with a slight kind of silvery blue shimmer in it, which I thought was kind of an interesting combination, so I had to pick it up. Overall though, these are pretty sheer. They're going to give you a hint of tint as far as pigment goes, but they're certainly not opaque or very pigmented glosses. In fact, my main question with these is how they differ from the old formula they had. They smell identical. To me, it kind of smells like sunscreen. Not a bad thing, but definitely a distinctive sunscreen smell. So if that is a turnoff for you, you might not like these, but the formula feels very much the same, where it's a thinner, very silky, smooth feeling gloss, not sticky at all. You're not going to notice that, like the lip gloss strings that you get when you open your mouth and it's too gloopy. It's a relatively thin formula, very comfortable on the lips. But like I said, I don't know how this differs from the other one that I think they have now discontinued to launch these, or maybe they just repackaged and renamed them. I'm not sure. But bottom line is, I really like the shades that I have. They're very, very natural. In fact, this one, let's just apply this guy. It looks like it could go with my look right now. So there it is, and again, this one is the My Eternity, kind of the cooler mauve gloss with the silvery blue shift, which you can actually, I want to say you can kind of see it. I hope it's not just the lights playing tricks, but it's definitely a noticeable shift. But like I said, very comfortable, feels like their old gloss formula. So if you like that, chances are you'll probably like these. Okay guys, that has to be it from me. I'm done talking about this batch of newness from the drugstore. Also, I just need to get my hot mess hair into a shower or something, or just restyled or doing something else. So really hope you guys enjoyed this video, thought it was useful. I hope it helps you out next time you are standing in front of the what's new section at your drugstore. You can kind of say, yeah, I'm all about that product, or nah, kind of glad I found out it's not for me before I bought it. So really hope I can help you out with that. Otherwise, I'd love to hear if you have tried any of this stuff, whether I recommended it to you or you just have already had experiences with it. Definitely let me know what you think in the comments below, as well as any of the other new stuff that is coming down the pipeline. Like I said, I have quite the bag of stuff to still talk about coming up in the next few videos, but would still love to hear your experiences with those. Other than that, guys, thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!